All right, guys, we have a case out of New York City that's currently developing, and it is crazy. Are you ready? This lovely lady right here is Orzolia Gull. She's a 51-year-old mother of two. She's married, living in Forest Hills, Queens. On Saturday morning, a dog walker was walking one of his dogs, and they happened to come across a duffel bag on Metropolitan Avenue. The dog started paying a lot of attention to this bag, and the dog walker was like, let me look inside and see what's in there. Never a good idea. When the guy opens the bag, he thought to himself, oh, maybe this is like a prop or like a mannequin. We know it's never a mannequin. He quickly realizes, after seeing tons of blood, that this is actually a woman's body, and quickly he calls police. Police show up, and there's no ID on the lady. There's no way to identify her, so they're kind of at a loss. But the dog starts smelling all around the bag and notices a trail of blood, and the dog starts following it. So the police, the dog walker, follow this trail of blood all the way down the street, a few blocks, all the way to Orzolia's house. This is her house. When police get there, they knock on the door, and a 13-year-old boy answers. It's her son. They immediately handcuff him, which I felt like was a little bit aggressive, but whatever. They immediately handcuff him and take him into custody and start asking him questions. According to the boy, he's been asleep this whole time, and he didn't even know where his mom was. But last night, she went out with a girlfriend to Lincoln Center to see a show. And then after police started searching around the neighborhood a little bit, they found out that she ended up at a bar by herself in the neighborhood later that night. And according to the bartender, she was alone the entire time. She stayed about 45 minutes and then closed her tab. Police recovered security footage, and this is what they found. A man at 4:30 in the morning leaving her house with the bag. How horrific is that? So come to find out, her husband and her other son were across the country in Oregon. And, police contacted them right away. And the husband said that he received a text message from his wife's phone that said, your entire family is next. So like I said, the story is still developing, but as of now, I think the police have a person of interest. According to people close to the case, she might have been having an affair with a man who had previously done work on the house, which would make sense because there was no signs of a break-in. And, she died of 60 stab wounds to her abdomen, shoulder, and there were defensive wounds. It definitely sounds like a crime of passion, but I guess we're going to find out. I'll keep you posted.
Shelley Notek appeared to be a typical wife and mother living in Raymond, Washington until 2003, when her daughters went to the local sheriff's office and told a shocking story. Shelley had been emotionally and physically abusing them for years and murdering people in their home. She would invite guests to stay with them and then starve, drug, and torture them, forcing them to jump off the roof, drink urine, and soak their wounds in bleach. She completely controlled the household, and at her orders, her husband killed one of the guests, and she killed at least 2 others. She's been in prison since 2004, but is set to be released in June of 2022. How they chose their victims is terrifying. On July 23, 2007, Dr. William Pettit escaped from his home to get help for his family. He was so beaten and bloody that neighbors didn't recognize him. That's because for 7 hours, Joshua Komarczyk and Stephen Hayes had terrorized the family in their home in Cheshire, Connecticut. Jennifer, the mother, was sexually assaulted by Stephen and then died by strangulation. 11-year-old Michaela was sexually assaulted by Joshua, and she died along with her 17-year-old sister Haley from smoke inhalation. After the intruders tied them to their beds and set the house on fire. And what did the family do to get targeted? The day before, Jennifer and Michaela had gone to the local grocery store where Joshua saw them and followed them home. This photo is not at all what it first appears to be. Part 19. This looks like it could be an older and younger brother walking together, but it was taken on February 12, 1993 at the New Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle, Merseyside, England. And that is 2-year-old James Folger, and he's being led by 10-year-olds John Venables and Robert Thompson, who would torture and murder the toddler. And they would become the youngest 2 convicted murderers in British history, although they have been released since 2001.
This man allegedly used dating sites to target single moms in an attempt to get close to and sexually assault their kids. On the dating sites, 42-year-old Epifanio Adolfo Jimenez used the alias Harley. He reportedly lured in single moms in Texas and asked to spend time with their children. Authorities learned of Jimenez after a 17-year-old girl claimed he had sexually assaulted her when she was 13 years old. The victim told authorities that he assaulted her in her bedroom after saying she did not, quote, appreciate what he does for her, end quote. Jimenez, who is married, is already on probation in Galveston County for online solicitation of a minor. Jimenez has been charged with sexual assault of a child, and as of right now, bond has not been set. Authorities believe he may have several victims and urge anyone who may have met him or allowed him to be around their kids to contact the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office.
In less than 5 minutes, James Rupert fatally shot 11 of his own family members on Easter Day 1975. James had a troubled life growing up, often being picked on by his brother. By age 16, he ran away and attempted to end his life. Into adulthood, James was really jealous of his brother, who had a good education, a successful job, and a big family of 8 kids with his ex-girlfriend. James still lived at home with his mom in Hamilton, Ohio, was unable to hold down a job, owed his mom and brother a ton of money, and was a severe alcoholic. His mom was actually about to kick him out. But on Easter Day 1975, his brother Leonard, his wife, and their 8 kids decided to spend the holiday at his mom's house with James. James was asleep upstairs while the rest of the family had an Easter egg hunt on the front lawn. At around 4 p.m., James woke up, loaded a .357 Magnum, 2 .22 caliber handguns, and a rifle, went downstairs and shot his mom, brother, and sister-in-law in the head, killing them. James then went into the living room and shot the rest of his 8 nieces and nephews, some of them twice to ensure there were no survivors. They were ages 4 to 17. He then called the police and was arrested shortly after this. James was found guilty on 2 counts of aggravated murder, but not guilty on the other 9 counts by reason of insanity. He received 2 life sentences, but will be eligible for parole in 2025 at 90 years old. At the crime scene, there was reportedly so much blood on the first floor that it soaked through the floorboards and into the basement, where it can still be seen on the wood to this day. A year after the massacre, the house was open to the public, and all of its contents were auctioned off. The house was then cleaned and rented out to a family who was new to the area and unaware of the murders. Shortly after this, they moved out following claims of hearing voices and other unexplained sounds. The house is still occupied today with new owners.
What really happened to Tamla Horsford? This is a really detailed case, so I'll be pinning part 2 in the comments. 40-year-old Tamla died in the early morning hours of November 4th, 2018 under extremely mysterious circumstances. So the day before, on November 3rd, Tamla was invited to a birthday/slumber party to celebrate her friend John's birthday. The party was at John's house in Cummings, Georgia, and consisted of 10 women and 2 men. So the men were Tom Smith, a husband of one of the women, and 27-year-old Jose Barrera, John's boyfriend. And at the time, John's aunt also lived in the basement of the house. Tamla arrived to the party around 8 p.m., and once there, everyone started drinking and having fun. Throughout the entire night, photos and videos were taken that showed Tamla happy and smiling. At around 11:30 p.m., guests who weren't staying the night began to leave, and the remaining women and Jose, one by one, went to bed over the next couple of hours. It was reported that Tamla wanted to stay up a little bit longer. The last person to see Tamla was Bridget Fuller, who was picked up by her husband at 1:47 a.m. She says Tamla was eating and told her she was planning to step outside on the balcony to smoke a cigarette like she had done throughout the entire night and then go to bed. But the next morning at around 8:45 a.m., Jean's aunt saw Tamla laying face down in the backyard in the grass, not moving. She ran to get Jean and Jose, who then called 911 just before 9 a.m. At one point, Jose said, quote, "She's not moving one bit. She's stiff," end quote. And at another time, Jean said, quote, "She was drinking and it looks like, I'm guessing, maybe she fell off the balcony," end quote. Almost immediately, the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office ruled Tamla's death as accidental. Authorities also never secured the scene, potential evidence was never tested, and no potential witnesses were ever interviewed. 4 months later, the autopsy results came back that stated Tamla died by multiple blunt force injuries. Tamla showed signs of blunt force trauma to her head, torso, and extremities, including abrasions on her face, 4 types of hemorrhages in the skull and brain, a dislocated right wrist, and cuts all over her body. Her neck was completely broken, and she also had a laceration on the right ventricle of her heart. Her toxicology report tested positive for THC and Xanax, and her blood alcohol content was .238, almost 3 times the legal limit to drive. Nobody else at the party had been tested for drugs, and authorities didn't test the contents of the bottle of tequila. On top of that, no sexual assault kit or fingernail clippings were collected, and from what anybody really knows, no autopsy photos were taken, which is against routine. Despite Tamla's major injuries and the balcony only being roughly 20 feet off the ground, FCSO ruled Tamla's death as accidental, with alcohol as a contributing factor. But that's only the surface level of this case, and it's raised many questions about what could have really happened to Tamla. After Tamla's case was officially closed in February of 2019, the official incident report and death investigation was made public, which raised the questions: how could Tamla have fallen over a nearly 4-foot railing without anyone seeing or hearing her? And could a roughly 20-foot fall cause that many severe injuries and death? The position that Tamla was found in is also extremely suspicious. Her head was face down, her legs were extended behind her with both feet pointing to the right, her right arm was close to her body, and her left arm was extended and bent at the elbow. Along with having their own suspicions, Tamla's family and close friend Michelle Graves were all told inconsistent stories from the group of women and Jose about what actually happened that night. So in February of 2019, Tamla's family hired an independent pathologist to conduct a second autopsy, who found multiple injuries on Tamla's body that could have only happened after she was dead, which indicated that someone could have thrown her off the balcony. But FCSO was adamant that her injuries were consistent with a fall from a second-story balcony. A lot of suspicion was placed on Jose for many reasons. During the investigation, he told police that he touched Tamla's body and moved her leg trying to see if she was alive. He also stated that he found evidence, which was an unlit cigarette and a lighter, but that he moved them before seeing Tamla's body. Michelle believes that Tamla was murdered and actually posted on social media accusing Jean and Jose. Shortly after this, extremely personal information of Michelle's was leaked, and whoever got that information got it from confidential court documents. And oddly enough, Jose was actually a pretrial officer at the Forsyth County Courthouse. After this, Jose was actually fired from his job after he used his position to illegally access Tamla's incident report before it was public. Adding to the mystery, there were security cameras at Jean's house pointing directly at the backyard, but they were found to be dead and not recording the night Tamla died. The home had a security system that picked up the back door opening and closing multiple times from 1:47 a.m. to 1:57 a.m. Around 1:47, the back door opened and was shut at 1:49 a.m. Then it was opened quickly again and shut at 1:50 a.m. And then it was opened one last time at 1:57 a.m., where it then stayed open all night until Tamla was found the next morning. The autopsy report stated that her time of death was 1:30 a.m., but that night was actually daylight savings, so it's speculated that she actually died at 2:30 a.m., but nothing has ever been confirmed. Another woman actually left the party that morning around 4:10 a.m., but apparently didn't notice Tamla. A woman who attended the party doesn't believe she fell, as there was a theory that Tamla leaned over the balcony to vomit. After reviewing evidence, Tamla's family's lawyer believes, quote, homicide is a strong possibility, end quote. Cummings, Georgia has a deeply rooted history of racism, and many wonder if that played a factor in how Tamla's case was handled. Her case was reopened in 2020, but in 2021, the GBI stated that no charges would be filed, as, quote, no evidence of foul play was involved, end quote. Could there have possibly been an altercation that night? Or was Tamla's death simply just a tragic accident?